do a 10-second countdown. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Township of Wainfleet regular council meeting of April 20th, 2021 to order. And we'll begin with our land acknowledgement statement. And we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Councillor McClellan.
Yes, PSW 006-2021. I have a conflict.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? Okay, I have a conflict with the short-term rental topic this evening in that my wife runs a bed and breakfast. I will be muting myself and shutting the camera off during that discussion, in which case the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cridlin, will take over. Okay, Mayor's remarks, they're very, very slim. Not much going on in that sense. To the public, please note the meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. Regional Council will meet electronically on Thursday, April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. And our next regular meeting of Council here in Wainfleet will be held Tuesday, May the 11th at 7 p.m. And that's it for Mayor's remarks. Are there any other remarks by other councillors? Councillor Van Vliet, I think, was first.
I just wanted to congratulate Councillor Cridlin on her appointment to the NPCF. Just let that out there.
Okay, congratulations. Okay.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, and Councillor Gilmore.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we plan to terminate the meeting no later than 9:30 unless we're within one or two items of completing the agenda, and anything that's carried over be scheduled for another meeting in between now and the next meeting.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor McClellan. And discussion? And I'll just say we have a very, very heavy agenda this evening, and it's a lot for us to work through. So that's probably the reason Councillor Gilmore is wanting to make that lighter. In that light, we will probably proceed through a few reports without too much input by the staff member, because some of the reports are very basic and self-explanatory, and we don't really need too much discussion on them. We've read the reports, and the reports are there for the public to read. So, okay, so we had a mover second on that. No further discussion. Okay, I have to do this the Zoom way. Councillor Cridlin, opposed or in favor?
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore?
In favor.
Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
And I'm in favor of that as well. So we will Deputy Clerk Meredith Giuffitelli, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yep. So we do have a proclamation listed on the agenda that we missed.
Oh, I just hadn't got there yet. I thought we were doing this first. So we'll do that proclamation. So on April 28th is the National Day of Mourning. And we here in Wainfleet have a proclamation. I would like to read that proclamation. Whereas in 1984, the Canadian Labour Congress established April 28th as a National Day of Mourning in Canada to remember and honor those who have died, been injured, or suffered illness in the workplace. And whereas National Day of Mourning, also known as Workers' Memorial Day, is officially recognized in 100 countries worldwide. And whereas the most recent statistics from the Association of Workers' Compensation Boards of Canada tell us that in 2018, 1,027 workplace fatalities were recorded in Canada, an increase of 76 from the previous year. And whereas the Township of Wainfleet is committed to providing and maintaining safe and healthy work environments for all employees by improving health and safety standards in the workplace in order to prevent further deaths, injuries, and diseases from work. Now, of the Township of Wainfleet hereby proclaims April 28th, 2021 as National Day of Mourning in the Township of Wainfleet, and that the Canadian flag at Town Hall be lowered to half-mast in recognition of those who have died, been injured, or suffered illness in the workplace. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor McClellan and Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll do recorded vote. Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor McClellan.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
And Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Okay, and that is carried. Are there any councillors' remarks? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you. I'll just a brief notice that the NPCA's strategic plan is now on the NPCA website for public input, and that's open till May 6th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments, discussion by any other councillors for this section? Okay, seeing none, we move on to adoption of previous council minutes. Minutes of the regular meeting held March 30th, 2021. Any corrections or comments to those meetings? Okay, seeing none. The motion being that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held March 30th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Mover seconder for that, please. Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor Cridland. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. The vote, please. Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor McClellan.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
And Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And that is carried. We have no public meeting this evening. We have no delegations. And so we'll move right into staff reports and recommendations. So the first one is administrative staff report from Ms. Louie. Just a note on this, we were having a discussion today, the CAO and we were talking about having a delegate authority on these basic things like this, where somebody's tax is like $80, not charged, that sort of thing. So we're going to look at that in the future, and that will become more of an administrative function as opposed to a council function. Obviously, there'll be lots of discussion on it and that sort of thing, but perhaps something for the future. And so we look to Ms. Louie.
Okay. Through the mayor to all of council. So staff report 008 is just, as the mayor mentioned, a routine report for a section 357 write-off. The subject property has received a write-off for 2020 totaling $99.15, with the municipal portion being $44.25.
Okay, so admin staff report ASR 008 2021, respecting cancellation, reduction, and refund of property tax be received, and that council approve the attached application pursuant to section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001, numbered 2020-02, to write off taxes in the amount of $99.15. And I'll have a mover and a seconder on that, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Cridland. Any further discussion? Okay, Councillor Van Vliet, in favor or opposed?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor?
Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Okay, and that is carried. We're moving on to our COVID impact report. And again, CAO and I were having a discussion today, and everything is in the report. And I don't know if we need the CAO to give his verbal report. Does anybody have any specific questions regarding the COVID report? And just in the interest of saving time going through it, it's all right there, everything that's happened. No questions? Will, is there anything that you feel absolutely you need to speak about?
Just a comment that this report was prepared prior to Friday's announcements that included a number of initiatives by the province that the province has since backed off on. So we have modified our response accordingly, and things are that were closed on Friday, Saturday, for example, have been reopened where possible. So
Okay, thank you. So motion being admin staff report ASR 009-2021 respecting COVID-19 impact report be received as information. A move and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Cridlin and Councillor McClellan. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, opposed or in favor of receiving that report, Councillor Van Vliet,
In favor.
Councillor Cridland,
In favor?
Councillor McClellan,
In favor.
and Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Okay, and that is carried. Okay, so now we're moving on to ASR 10-2021, the short-term rentals. This is where I have a conflict. So Councillor Cridland, you are now in the mayor's chair, and I will mute and shut my camera off.
Thank you. Next again is the ASR report 012021 short-term rentals. Just announce, Mr. Colossa, would you like to give a brief overview of your report?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, to Council. The purpose of this report is to provide a response and some background information to Council in response to a notice of motion that was made originally, I want to say in 2019, 2020, and then subsequently followed up at the last meeting of Council on March 9th. This report is intended to provide Council with a high-level overview of the short-term rentals situation that exists across the province and within the Township of Wainfleet. It really is sort of the first step in providing some basic information to Council about some of the issues and challenges and opportunities that short-term rentals can provide to the township. And it identifies various options for consideration by Council. As I indicated, it really is sort of the first step in what will probably be a fairly extensive process in the event that Council wishes to proceed down the road of implementing any sort of regulations dealing with short-term rentals. And certainly any sort of path that we take forward will eventually need to include public consultation and certainly engagement of the community with respect to any final sort of direction. At this time, again, in the interests of brevity, I'll try to answer any questions that members might have. But at this stage, we're looking to get some direction from Council on what your thoughts are with respect to short-term rentals, and if there is support. I think from staff's perspective, the thinking is that we sort of try to establish a sort of initial framework to sort of further narrow down the issues that we have identified, get that in front of Council at a future meeting. And then if there is sort of appetite, or if we're heading in the right direction, we can then proceed to broader community engagement prior to any sort of ratification or final decision on how we will be going.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask the clerk. We have a motion on this report. Could I go into discussion first and then round up with whatever motion may come out of that discussion? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. So does somebody want to start the discussion for this report then tonight? Councillor McClellan, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I understand the recommendation is that we set up an enforcement agency or a licensing department on this. I think that's the way to go for my own personal thing. I just believe it should be like our building department that would be self-funded and take care of itself. So it's no cost to the general taxpayers. If you're a business, you're gonna, and that's what you are if you're running this. I see it more for the absentee style rentals where the homeowner is not home when the place is rented than for a simple bed and breakfast. You know, it's I haven't had anybody complain about a bed and breakfast. It's all about the short-term Airbnb or that type of business that is running in there. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Or enough to get started anyway.
Right. All right. Councillor Van Vliet, then, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think this question would be either for Mark or for Lee if he's there. Besides a couple complaints that I've received, and you've probably all been copied on them, do we get a lot of complaints about short-term rentals, whether it be noise, overpopulated? I understand that we're looking at capacity levels and septic tanks and that, but do we get a lot of complaints about noise or nuisances happening?
We get a lot of, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Van Vliet, we do get quite a few phone calls regarding it. They ask about regulations and licenses, and as soon as we tell them that we don't regulate them here in the township, we don't get complaint forms filled out. Even though I do explain to them, like, there are ways under noise control bylaw and nuisance bylaw that we can help address some of these issues. But even though we get lots of calls in regarding them, they don't actually formulate into a complaint form because there is no B&B short-term rental type bylaw. Okay, but you still don't get filed noise complaints or filed whatever complaint would go along with it. Not very many, but we do get lots of calls regarding it. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that that this is maybe in its infancy in the township more than anything. So it's a good step to get going. I just want to make sure that we take our time and we don't have any missteps along the way. And I'm wondering, can we just take the bed and breakfast scenario right out of the equation? So the mayor, doesn't have to exclude himself. This has nothing to do with bed and breakfast in the first place, in my opinion. So that'd be the first thing that I would do, is get that out of the equation so that we're all, there's really no reason for him to have to declare a conflict or something that isn't really part of what we're trying to accomplish. So those are my comments. I agree with my colleagues that I think that we need to get thinking about this, because it does have the potential to become a bigger problem than it is in its infancy at the moment. So I support moving forward as long as we take our time, and I expect that this is going to take some time. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan.
If that was a motion by Councillor Gilmore to take bed and breakfast out of it, I want to second it.
Well,
so can we make that a formal
sorry,
motion?
Madam Mayor. I mean, we're going to refer this back to staff. I don't need to make a motion. They can take that under advisement. And then when it comes back, if the B&B part is out of it, then the mayor doesn't have to declare a conflict, and we can just deal with the problem that we want to deal with. If you want a motion, I'll make it, but to me, I don't think it's necessary.
I'm just Councillor Van Vliet, I'm going to go to Will first, just in case it's a procedural thing, and I'll come right back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And again, my recommendation would be, again, procedurally, there is a sort of draft motion that's contained at the front on the first page of the report. And my suggestion is the second paragraph of that recommendation could be sort of very easily amended to indicate that it's with the exclusion of bed and breakfasts. So sort of a bylaw regulating short-term rentals with the exclusion of bed and breakfasts in the township for review by council. And if you were to incorporate that within that sort of motion framework, that gives very clear direction that will not be sort of touched upon by staff, and that will also permit, as everyone has sort of indicated to date, that the mayor would be able to participate in future meetings.
Thank you, Will. I'm going to go to Councillor Van Vliet and then Councillor McClellan. I think you had your hand up next. Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make it clear that we're not doing, excluding bed and breakfasts just to bring the mayor back in. We're excluding bed and breakfasts because the owner is always present at a bed and breakfast. Just wanted to.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, correct. That's my point.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, so I was just going to kind of elaborate on that a bit. Will, in the definitions, can we put in that it's a owner occupied building that has bed and breakfast while they're there, so that somebody doesn't try and skirt around it and say, well, it's a bed and breakfast, but I was on holiday this week, and you know the drill, right? There's lots of con men.
Thank you. If there isn't any other discussion, would you like me to read the motion and the one with the amendment then?
Sure, give it a shot.
All right, that's right. All right, the motion is that administrative staff report ASR 010-2021 respecting short-term rentals be received, and that staff be directed to draft a licensing bylaw regulating short-term rentals with the amendment that's exclusion of the bed and breakfast in the Township of Wainfleet for review by council at the next available meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder then, please? Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Councillor Gilmore. Any other discussion about that amendment? I might just add a comment that does include then more outreach to the public. I mean, there will be obviously a greater public engagement. Thank you, Mr. Colosio.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. By all means, I think what we're as staff anticipating is sort of establishing sort of a starting point that we can introduce with council, so that we're sort of all on the same sort of starting block. And then once we have a sort of initial framework laid out, we can then go to the public to obtain input and comments and suggestions, and then come back and eventually come to a point where we're coming up with a consolidated document that reflects all the needs of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Klossa. Okay, so I'm going to call the vote then. Those in, Councillor Van Vliet, in favor or opposed?
Favor.
Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore?
Favor.
I'm also in favor, so that's carried. Thank you, and I will hand the chair back to the mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'm back. Okay, we're moving on to ASR 011-2021, Summer Lakeshore Area Management Strategy. And on this one, we will have to have our CAO speak to this one. Will, if you would like to have a discussion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this report represents a sort of summary report that highlights the efforts that staff have been undertaking over the last several months in anticipation of the summer of 2021 and another potentially busy year at in the Lakeshore area of the township. The report starts off with some basic background. Once again, at this time, I'd like to emphasize that the township is home to 5 publicly owned beaches along Lake Erie. One of those beaches is actually owned by the township, and that is Reeves Bay Beach, which includes approximately half a kilometer along the lake, sort of where Quarry Road meets Lakeshore Road. The other publicly owned beaches include the Long Beach Conservation Area, the Niagara Regional Beach, Lakewood Conservation Area, which although a beach area is not yet fully developed and open to the public, and Morgan's Point Conservation Area, also owned by the NPCA. In addition to those public beaches along the Lakeshore, the Conservation Authority does also have a number of conservation areas, including the Wainfleet wetlands or the former quarry site on Quarry Road, the Wainfleet Bog, which really is not a huge destination for summer adventure, and the Chippewa Creek Conservation Area up near Wellandport. Aside from that, really the only other beaches that exist on Lake Erie are privately owned beaches, and that includes the very popular location near where Augustine Road meets Lake Erie, what's known as Long Beach. Again, the township in that area owns the 66-foot wide road allowance, but once you step off that road allowance, you're on private property, and those beaches are not ours to. We simply don't have jurisdiction over those beaches. Again, the report goes on to identify some of the challenges that we had in 2020, particularly somewhat of an anomaly year, with conditions certainly being worse than they have been in the most recent memory. And a lot of that is arising from the COVID pandemic and the public really trying to get out and take advantage of open spaces and public amenities during what was a pandemic and lockdown period. That said, there were a number of different issues that were raised. And what we've sort of done over the course of the last several months is try to engage with our community partners to address some of those issues. And in doing so, I think I'll sort of run through the report very quickly. We've worked with the NPCA to deal with some of the issues that they had that we experienced at the quarry. And there is currently, there was a survey that was undertaken in conjunction, led by the NPCA, but in conjunction with the township. And the results of that survey are currently being compiled with some recommendations that'll be going to the NPCA in due course. We also have been working with the Niagara region regarding the operation of the regional beach, as well as some enforcement related issues and protocols associated with not only COVID protocols, but parking along the regional portion of Lakeshore Road. We've also been in touch with the Niagara Regional Police Service, and there is a new initiative that was proposed through the Police Services Board budget that would see some specialized beach area patrols being undertaken by the Niagara Regional Police in order to help curb some of the inappropriate behavior that's going on. Beyond that, we looked at parking regulations. Again, last year, the township acknowledged or recognized that parking was one of the areas of jurisdiction where we had authority to take steps to try and mitigate the influx of residents and visitors coming in. And to that effect, we had some fairly significant changes that were introduced to no parking zones, to parking fine structures, and so on and so forth. Since last year, since we had the public meeting in September of last year, staff have gone back and tried to take some of the comments that we heard and try to put them into practice. And to that effect, later on the agenda this evening, we are coming back with some recommendations for some further amendments to the traffic bylaw to introduce some resident permit parking to accommodate some access for residents to some of the private beach areas, but also to revisit the fine structure and try to differentiate, for example, parking areas versus no stopping areas versus emergency routes and so on. And you'll see that in the bylaw enforcement staff report shortly. With respect to the Augustine Road lake access, as I indicated at the outset, the Augustine or the Long Beach located at the end of the Augustine Road lake access is for the most part private property, with the township only owning the 66-foot wide road allowance. We did hear complaints from the public about various inappropriate behaviors going on, particularly with respect to washroom facilities in the area. And to that end, one of the recommendations that staff are making for council's consideration is the relocation of the township's public washrooms from their location at Braun and Lakeshore Road right to the sort of beach entryway. Again, staff had some hesitancy at making this recommendation because we are aware that historically, when the washrooms were first being proposed a number of years back, there were residents in the area right at the beach access that were expressing concern about having washroom facilities, porta potties, essentially, that close to the residential areas. That said, given our lack of resources or lack of land or facilities in the area, staff at this point really considered it's the sort of least worst option, whether we deal with continuing complaints about people defecating or urinating in public or on private property, or having, for example, an accessible washroom right at the beach. So again, it's sort of not our preferred course of action, but given what we have in the area, staff believe that might be the best course of action to try, at least for 2021 on a trial basis, to see if that improves the circumstances associated with users of that beach. Again, 2021 is clearly going to be another COVID year. And when any sort of facilities that we have, including the washrooms, including the garbage containers, will certainly be on an enhanced patrol period, meaning we're going to have to do additional cleanings. And during those cleanings, we also do trash pickup and that sort of thing. So that is sort of the initiative that we are proposing to try and deal with the Augustine Road beach access. The other elements, again, in addition to the Augustine Road access, the township owns a number of other beach accesses from Lakeshore Road to the lake. We are suggesting some additional regulations regarding those with respect to parking, with respect to what can and cannot be done on those, particularly with things like bonfires, cooking, that sort of thing. And we are prepared to return to council with a report that will address that at your next available meeting. That summarizes the sort of initial steps that we as staff are recommending at this stage. There are a variety of other initiatives that council may wish to consider as well, including undertaking a comprehensive and ongoing education or communications plan with respect to issues and controls with respect to the beaches. We may want to, and I think this was mentioned last year, we may want to retain an external consultant to undertake a sort of master plan of the entire Lakeshore area to identify all the assets of the municipality in the area and to develop both a strategic vision and a strategic direction for the township moving forward. I think that summarizes the report. Again, a lot of work and a lot of consultation went into this. I just want to emphasize one last time that Wainfleet's situation is so much different when you look at places like Port Colborne or Fort Erie and St. Catharines, where you have the municipality physically owning the entire beach area. And as such, they are able to introduce controls, some of them legal, some of them perhaps not so legal. But in cases, in Wainfleet's case, we're in a situation where a lot of the problems that we're experiencing are at areas that are simply not under our authority, not under our jurisdiction to deal with. And as such, it's somewhat of a challenge for us to develop plans and move forward.
Okay, thank you, Will. So I'm going to read the motion first, and then we can get into discussing the details of it. Okay, motion, admin staff report ASR 011-2021, respecting a strategy for the management of issues along the lakeshore areas of the township for the summer of 2021 be received as information. And that staff continue to liaise and work cooperatively with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Niagara Region, and Niagara Regional Police to plan for and address any issues that may present on NPCA or regional lands, as well as on other private property along Lakeshore. And that council consider amendments to the township's parking bylaw in response to comments received from the public regarding Lakeshore area on-street parking opportunities. And that staff be directed a draft return bylaw to regulate township beaches and road allowances, lake accesses at the next available meeting of council. And that staff be authorized to relocate the township's accessible public washroom facility at Long Beach to Augustine Road, lake access as outlined in the report. A mover and a seconder to put this on the table, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Van Vliet. Any discussion? Councillor Van Vliet.
I'll just start. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a lot of different questions and statements, but my first one is I'm wondering why we have to have a porta potty at all at Augustine Road Allowance, because it's not a beach, it's a road allowance. And we own 17 road allowances. We're not putting out 17 porta potties. What makes this one different?
Okay, Mr. Will.
I will try to answer that. I think historically, that beach has become a destination for members of the public. Again, it is privately owned. It is not something that the township owns or operates as a beach. But there has been demand from residents in the area, from businesses in the area, calling on the township to do something to try and address the problems or the issues that are associated there. You are quite correct that we have a number of other road allowances that run to the lake that we do not provide those facilities to. However, like I say, historically, the township has attempted to take steps to address issues or complaints, and the porta potties was a solution that was arrived at to try and mitigate the negative impacts that those beach visitors were having on the neighboring community.
Councillor Van Vliet.
I will let somebody else go because I have a long list.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Actually, Councillor Cridlin had her hand up before me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I just really wanted to start with, thanking the staff for this much work. I think there's a lot of options. It feels very different than last year. We're ahead. We have this whole basket now to work with. We know lots of things worked last year. They might have been a weekend late, but they did make a difference. So I see us having a lot of things here that will help us manage. And again, staying in where we have our jurisdiction, and that's been made very clear with this report. And I think that's going to help with our public part of this. Again, the big win for me is the second one about liaising and working properly with the other organizations. So I just really want to thank the staff for so many options. And we're going to have to be measured around what we pull when we pull it. So we've got lots of variables. We've got weather. Some of these things are only needed on weekends. I'm concerned still about capacity. So I'm going to really want to focus on how much parking do we know is available now in this area from either a business or a public perspective. We know what our roads do or don't do, but I want to know within that radius how many parking spots are now there. And if there's 100 or 200 already that aren't ours, then that's going to change to me what we're going to do with the parking flexibility. But again, the staff has built in lots of flexibility here for us to work with. So just a few comments to get started. I know there's lots of work on this file that we have to do still. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McClellan, did you want any response at all there, Councillor Cridlin, from the CAO? Or?
No, I think it just capture this parking capacity will be something that I maybe continue to come back to. So that's we will again narrow down what we know about it and be able to respond accordingly. So thank you.
Okay,
thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, so Councillor Cridlin kind of stole one of my things. It was about the available parking that's there now, because that definitely makes up what we're going to do or what I think we should be doing. But the other thing about the washrooms, so in my world, we now have to have washrooms that have running water, so they have a tank in them, and they so you have a facility to wash your hands. Then you need hand sanitizer on top of that. So these things have to be plugged in to 110 volts. So there's two things on these, Will, that you might take back to staff. You're going to need to put a service in there, and then we're going to have some kind of way to bolt them down so the wind doesn't blow them over, or the vandals don't tip them over. But there's a local company that makes them here. We rent them, but they're mandatory on all job sites now. So, you got to be able to wash your hands with COVID, and there has to be hand sanitizer in there. It's the old porta potty is gone.
Okay, I'll come back to Councillor Van Vliet.
Oh, okay. I think Terry has his hand up.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't see.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So my other questions are the signage that's at the Augustine Road allowance. It's a sign, picture of it, but it says the Township of Wainfleet, Augustine Road allowance beach access, and then there's about 20 different icons on this sign. Is there a way we can just get rid of the sign and say dangerous undertow, no lifeguard? Because this kind of looks like we have a beach here, that we're in the beach business, and we're not in the beach business. So that's my one question. The other question is the regional beach closes at 4 o'clock. Can we either take that back, or can we do something about that? 4 o'clock is crazy.
I thought it was 6.
No, it's 4. I got a picture of it.
Oh.
Hang on.
And well, the CAO and I have been having discussions on that, but I'll let go ahead, Will, with that answer.
Well, and again, the mayor and staff have been having those discussions, and I see Richard Nan, our operations manager, who is sort of the township's liaison and with Niagara Region, and perhaps he could speak to that.
Through your worship, to the members of council. The time frames for the beach opening at the regional portion of the beach was an arrangement with the Niagara Region and the homeowner, or the adjacent homeowners, at the time when they redeveloped that portion of land. It says 4 o'clock because after Labor Day weekend, it closes at 4. Beginning May 24 weekend up and through until Labor Day, it is open till 6 o'clock. There has been discussions, and we have been in discussions with the region regarding the time frame, closing and opening, etc. And we've left it with them to have that discussion with the parties that they had the agreement with. But as the township, our purpose there is strictly to maintain the property in the beautiful state that it was in or was left in, and to try and enhance the service there. So they are actually asking us to maintain the property. But as far as regulating the opening and closing, that is strictly with the Niagara region at this time.
And that's and that said, Mr. Mayor, any sort of direction with respect to whether it's the regional beach or signage at the Augustine Road beach access. Again, the purpose of our discussion this evening is for staff to receive that kind of direction from council and try and do what we can to implement it. So certainly, for example, if members wish to pursue amended hours at that regional beach, that is direction that you can give to us as staff to try and negotiate with the region. If you want to provide us direction regarding amendments to signage, we can certainly do that. This is sort of the whole idea of the discussion and the matter being before you this evening.
Okay, Councillor Van Vliet, follow up, please.
Well, my follow-up would be to have those hours amended. I mean, we've all heard from people that whether it's 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's too early. I mean, 8 o'clock is good because then it's not dark yet when shenanigans start to happen. And people can get there without going to a road access. I would like to see that. I don't know how my colleagues feel.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Councillor Gilmore was up ahead of me, so.
Okay, Councillor Gilmore.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, I agree with Councillor Van Vliet. The hours should be at least 8 o'clock or dusk. But that's something that, we'll have to try to convince the region that it's a common sense thing to do, which good luck with that. My main concern, whenever I see a map and I coming back to figure 1 again, Augustine Road, really, I think we need to barricade that off perpendicular to the lake, despite the fact that, I know what it says in yellow, but that's not what happens in practicality. And it's certainly not in the best interest of 12181. So my suggestion would be that we barricade it east and west, but square to the edge of the water, not where the yellow shaded is. And I understand the other implications around doing that. At the moment, it's not a problem, but to try to delineate it the way it's shaded is not and practical in any way, and is not what's going on in practice. So those are my comments, and the best thing that can happen is if we get more access to the regional beach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, so one question is, can anybody tell me how late the NPCA Conservation Lake Long Beach is open till? The Lakewood Camp one, that's not open at all. It's just there. There's nothing. So that one comes out. And Morgan's Point, what are the hours there? Right? It just, I don't know if knows or will knows, or that's my first point.
Any knowledge there, or should we look into that?
We can dig that up as we speak. At this moment, I'm not sure the exact hours. I thought it was dusk, but we'll double check that.
So if I could then, so if we're going to do that, we should try and get them all the same. So then, if we've got a parking bylaw enforcement officer, he knows that and I'd rather see it an hour than dusk, because that's arguable. So if it's 8 o'clock or 8:30 or 7:30, whatever the hour is, we all know everybody should be leaving, and then he can go down and do his job without argument, without anything. So that would be one. And then my question to Councillor Gilmore is, at Augustine Road, when you say barricaded off, you're just talking at the edge of pavement, just put a barricade across there. Do we maybe talk to the homeowners on each side and see if we can go 10 feet? I don't know if there's a driveway there or not, but can we put one more? I'm thinking Jersey barriers of what you're talking about. Can we put those there? And I know on some construction sites, they actually put a 4-foot fence, chain link fence on top of that. Is that what we want to do to stop it? Because it's not a beach. I just see money being poured out of this and no matter what we do, we're going to be like poor Mr. Ford. We're never going to get it right, folks. So
one of the interesting things there about that, I'm sure you folks heard, everybody else heard it as well, but quite a few people were phoning me last year saying, they weren't even using the access anymore. They're walking down the little private road there and going through people's yards to get down. So just, I'm not saying the barrier isn't a great idea. I'm just saying, looking at it from all perspectives, that may create more of that where people are cutting through people's yards. Just something to consider as we move forward with it. So Councillor Gilmore, actually, you're next, Terry.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to answer Councillor McClellan's question. My comment about the barricade was from the water's edge up to the property line of the cottage owners on the east and west side, to keep people from coming down, which they do now, and then spreading out east and west. That's what I was referring to, not barricading off the entrance.
Okay, so you're just going to do the limit, the west limit.
I just want to keep them in forget about the dimensions, keep them in the area that everybody thinks is the area. It's not the area, but that's what they think the area is. If we can contain them to that area and keep them from going in front of the other property owners, that's a step forward. But to do that idea in the 66 feet in the shaded yellow area in figure 1, that makes matters worse. Because you can't even get there because of other problems. Like, the whole thing is fraught with peril. I get that, but unless you're gonna razor wire it, then we have to contain them. That's all.
Go ahead, Councillor McClellan, and then we'll go to the CAO.
Okay, so if I could, I agree with Councillor Gilmore, and I think under our parking amendments that are coming tonight, there'll be no stopping, no standing, no anything. So if you put the Jersey barriers, you could leave a gap between the east and the west and the north so that you could walk in there if you were to walk down. But if we put the no stopping, no standing and that on Augustine Road, then you're going to have to walk down from wherever you park north of the Gordari Trail all the way down. And last year they were dumping their families in their picnic baskets, and they got smart enough that they were actually taking a bike with them, and then the driver would go back and ride his bike back down. So maybe we just stop that. And there are other nice beaches here that are run by other people that are supposed to be beaches that are into beach business. Let's just try and encourage them to go that way.
Okay, Will, you were next.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with respect to blocking or restricting access off the yellow road allowance to the east and to the west, I think is what Councillor Gilmore is proposing, with barricades or fencing of some kind. Just two points I'd like to make with respect to that. First of all, if we were to do any installations, and again, we are here at the discretion of council to do as you direct. If we were to do any installation of barricades or fencing, we would legally be required to place that barricade or fencing only on township-owned property. We could not place it on property that we don't own. That is just something as a township we just could not do, plain and simple. Item number 2, I'd like to point out is that that yellow stretch, Augustine Road, is technically a municipal road allowance. And a road allowance is a piece of, it's a special category of land owned by a township that any member of the public has the right to cross over and what's the word? Traverse at their own sort of at their own desire. We own them all across the township. They're not just the beach accesses. We have them up in the north end of the township near Wellandport. We have them in the east end near Haldeman. The west end near Haldeman, the east end near Port Colborne. Some of them are open and some of them are closed. But one of the common things that applies to all road allowances within the township is that we do not install fencing or barricades to prevent people from either getting onto the road allowance off of the adjoining private property or getting off the road allowance onto the adjoining private property. Those line fences or those side fences are put up by the private property owners that abut those road allowances in order to prevent either people coming off the road onto their property or to keep animals or whatever on their property and have it prevented from straying onto the road. So I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I just want council to be aware that installing a fence or a barricade along the boundaries of a road to prevent someone from leaving that road allowance and going onto a abutting property is it's a significant philosophical decision that council needs to put its mind to, because frankly, we don't have those. We've never done that before. And again, it's not something that staff would normally recommend that council get into. If you want to keep people off those private properties, generally it's up to the private property owner to install those fences on their own. Those are my comments. Again, we'll welcome any discussion or direction that comes from council, but this will be a departure from the norm for road allowances, not only in Wainfleet, but in most places. The only roads that I know of that really have fences around them are the 400 series highways, where you have fences that are erected by the province. But other than that, most road allowances do not have municipal fences to sort of prevent access to or from them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilmore, did you have your hand up a second ago?
Well, okay, I understand where the CAO was coming from, but through you, Mayor, at the very least, consider, if you go to figure 1, the yellow shaded area, consider a barricade on the western portion of that shaded area only, the western portion, up on the diagonal that it shows to the base of the hill where the walkway comes down. Just consider barricading that off then. That's on our property, right? And the rest of it to the west will have to take care of itself, I guess. But at least you'll have part of it delineated. What I don't want to delineate is further area to the east in front of those other people, because that's not what people think is going on in practice. I'm just trying to contain people in the area that they think they're allowed to be contained in, which nobody in their right mind considers that it runs the way it runs in the picture. Nobody. So if you at least put the barrier on the western portion to delineate one of our borders, it's going to help. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Krillin, I think you had your hand up next.
I think it's Councillor Van Vliet or Councillor McClellan before me, Mayor. I'll just defer for a second. Thank you.
I think it was Councillor Van Vliet.
Okay, so I have two more points. I have a question about the beach patrols we were talking about with the police. It's a new policing initiative. Does that mean all beaches in Niagara or just Wainfleet beaches?
Mr. Mayor might be able to speak to it as a member of the Police Services Board, but it is a sort of initiative that was started by the Port Colborne Detachment, and it would cover all the beaches that the Port Colborne Detachment oversees, running basically from the Haldeman boundary through Port. And Mr. Mayor, correct me, does it go as far and into Fort Erie as well?
Yeah, initially, well, I've met with the officer in charge in Port Colborne to discuss this. And just locally, Port Colborne and Wainfleet, they are ramping up for extra patrols, extra enforcement on the beach areas. In the fall, about November, I was at one of our police board meetings. We were discussing a summer team for all beaches in Niagara to enforce because of the way it was last summer. I'm going to speculate a small team, 8-10 people perhaps at the most, and their job would be all the beaches in Niagara. So we would only see, you know, a small percentage of that here, considering the number of beaches there are to look after. But I met with the officer in charge maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago in Port Colborne, and we discussed our concerns for the beaches here this summer, and he assured me that they are taking extra steps because they also don't want a repetition of last year, and they're recognizing that this summer is probably going to be the same. So we'll wait and see how that unfolds, but I'm being told that's the way it is. Councillor Van Vliet.
Okay, thank you for that. I figured it would be, it's pretty much the same as, because I sat in that meeting with you. With the Port Colborne Detachment. So it's pretty much the same as it's going to be last year. My other comment is the NPCA survey. I don't know if anybody else did the NPCA survey about the quarries. There's nothing on there that anybody from Wainfleet asked for. So I'm not sure where the NPCA is going with the quarry land, but if anybody else has done that, I think we need to talk to them because their vision of what the quarry should be and what the township's vision of what the quarry should be are really not on the same page.
Could Councillor Krillin speak to that at all? Is there anything there from your position on the NPCA board?
Thank you, Mayor. I think informally, like not speaking for the board, but there will be definitely reports. So this also will have to be collated. And I am fairly certain that the next piece would be that it comes to Wainfleet Township Corporation because we have the lands within us. So with the staff, obviously at the NPCA, I expect there'll be a meeting set up with the mayor and the CAO, probably before it comes back to the board even. So a survey is a survey. It's a start. So I hope that helps a bit. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Van Vliet, carry on.
I just want to follow, because we had a meeting with the NPCA July 14th last year, and there was a motion where Councillor McClellan said that he would like to get involved with whatever we were going to do going forward, and nothing happened. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but nothing.
Yeah, we met with myself and the CEO and CA, our Will here, and some others met in, I can't even remember when that was. But it was after September, and we discussed the quarry lands and what Wainfleet's vision of it was. They, at that time, I believe, clearly understood what we were thinking. So, Will, would you speak further to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. And after that sort of general meeting, staff of both the township and the NPCA have had subsequent meetings, and they are working on plans. The survey was one element of the effort, and really trying to establish that sort of longer range vision moving forward. But there are also working on plans on a much shorter time frame basically to be done in 2021 this year, that are sort of separate and apart from the survey. Yes, the survey is there for a longer term, sort of where they're going or where they're heading. But with respect to the issues and problems that were identified, again, last year and in subsequent meetings we've had with them, they are also looking at implementing some short-term solutions, but those need to go through the NPCA process before they loop back and come to the township. So we're really not in a position to be able to sort of identify exactly which options are most supportable, if you will, by the NPCA at this stage.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that's good discussion. Councillor McCall.
Yeah, just to go back to the Augustine Road barricades. Will, I know you say that we can't go off of our land. If we had permission from the two abutting landowners, could we not run that square right down to the water's edge? If we get permission, can we not do that? Get a letter, get a lawyer to write something up? I mean, I don't see that as a big deal. These people are fighting this every day of the summer. I'm sure they would rather see something than nothing.
Well,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, without getting into personal details and particulars, there are some issues associated with the ownership of both those properties that it's not quite as simple as
Okay, I got it.
Things up.
I got it.
Okay. Very good.
Yep.
Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you again, the idea of barriers, I think we should capture that we want to do something around delineating. I mean, we tried something last year, it didn't work. So that's still an area that we're going to continue to see, and we may not need it. So I'm hoping there's a kind of a hierarchy of measures that, again, we're way ahead. We'll know what things we will need depending on what's going to be developing. The other thing we don't know yet is how much beach is eventually going to be exposed by Mother Nature this year. So another thing that made it very difficult last year was the beach was very, very small. I have no idea what that will do, but planning tonight for it, I guarantee we're wrong, right? So I think, again, we've built a lot of things here that will help us depending on what the capacity is. I know I talked about staff parking capacity, so I wouldn't mind directing staff to, come back with some kind of warm number, not perfect. And then also for capacity, make some estimates around, who we would like to host, how many we'd like to host on 66 feet. Again, just a regular number. So when we put those two numbers together, we'll see maybe what we're going to be planning for. So I'm just going to stay with the capacity. Again, we've got lots of ideas, I think, here to work with. And if somebody wants to amend the motion, that's great. But I think I'm ready to probably even vote on the motion now after the discussion we've had. It's been great.
I would like to go further because we did land very strongly in regards to the outhouse. Councillor Van Vliet brought that up with concerns about relocating the outhouse, and we didn't really end up anywhere with that. Her point being that we don't put outhouses on any of our other road allowances. The countermeasure to that was, but then people are using the sand to defecate and urinate and covering it up on the sand. One of the complaints I heard a lot last year was the location of it up by the Hungry Putter did nothing for people who were 200 and 300 meters down the beach, and their kids had to go to the bathroom, so they didn't bother taking them that far. So, I think we should probably have a little bit more discussion on this to figure out whether we want to remove that from that motion or where we're going to amend that motion.
I see.
Councillor Cridland.
No, thank you, Mayor. I think, again, if we try it, we'll know it's wrong. So I think, to explore it further after tonight's meeting, if that's something that we go ahead on, we'll hear very soon. And so we don't really have another option for it. So I think we're hearing it's either relocate or even nothing. So I'm kind of looking at that as either relocate or no washroom. That's sort of where I would land.
And the one thing for the public, and I'm going to quote Councillor Gilmore on this. This is like the short-term rental issue. This beach issue isn't going to be solved in one short little meeting here. This could take a number of meetings, if not maybe a year or two. We'll try something for the public here. We'll try something and we might find it doesn't work. And so we're going to have to back off on that and try something else. This, for the public, this is a very, very complex issue, and there is no right answer. At our meeting last September, we talked about this, and there were opposing views in that meeting from one end of the scale to the other. So it's a really, really challenging thing here to come up with a solution for, specifically for the Augustine Road Long Beach area there. So I guess I'm asking the public to just bear with us. We're trying, and we're going to do the best we can to try to get it as close to right as we can, but I know for a fact that we're not going to get it perfect right off the bat here, and it'll take some tweaking as we go forward. Okay, so did somebody want to, Councillor Cridlin was happy with the outhouse being relocated. Yep. Councillor Van Vliet, you were not happy. Is anybody, Councillor McClellan, you have another comment?
Like I said, if you put the outhouses there, you're just inviting them to come. We don't want them there. And there's an expense. There's $5,000 or $6,000 by the time you pour concrete, put a service in, and then you got to rent these things by it's by the day. How many are you going to put there to cover it? Listen, I firmly believe we should barricade it at the edge of pavement, put it up, turn it down the property lines for whatever ways it is, and no washrooms, and post it. This is not a beach. Do not enter.
Okay. So I guess I need a amendment motion to take the washroom out, if that's what somebody wants to do here, to not relocate the bathroom.
Mayor, just before that.
Yes, go ahead.
Does that, if I could just clarify then, if it's not being relocated, does that mean it's staying where it is?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. We haven't discussed that. Will, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you remove that last paragraph from the motion recommending relocation, then the washroom would remain in its current location at the Braun Road Lakeshore. If you want to take it a step further and not have a public washroom at all, that would be the second amendment, if you will, and further that no public washroom be provided. So it would sort of be a two-stepper if you want to go those two steps. But if you just simply remove that relocation motion, then the washroom will go into its normal place.
Okay. Councillor Gilmore. Sorry, Councillor Van Vliet had her hand up just as well.
You know what? I'm communicating with the residents, so go ahead, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Gilmore.
Okay, thanks through you, Mayor. To Will, is there? I guess we need to investigate whether there's a difference between the washroom facilities that are required at a construction workplace versus what we are providing for public service, I suppose. I don't know. I realize that the box that Councillor McClellan's in with his business, but that's legislated. I don't know if we're legislated or not. I don't think trying them at the other location is necessarily a bad idea. We're not going to stop people from coming anyway, and it's public property owned by the taxpayers of Wainfleet. So, we have to be careful. We've had enough already of bureaucratic overreach, and I'm not in any way going to participate in any more. So, but do we have to provide all these upgraded washrooms? I mean, if so, okay, then let's do it. I think we should try it closer to the beach because, you know, it is a problem when you have kids there. It is a problem. If we're going to stop it and close it off and take our chances, that's a whole different matter. But I'm not lining up for that. That's just me.
Okay, Will had his hand up, then Councillor Cridland, then Councillor Van Vliet.
Just with respect to the washroom, maybe I could ask Richard Nan to sort of describe the facilities that we have had in the past and what sort of if we can continue using that. Again, we'll need to double check or investigate to see what legislative changes might have come into effect. But if not, if you could describe the washrooms we provided in the past and what the sort of relocation would look like from his perspective.
Through your worship to members of council. So just to give the council a little bit of background, the portable washroom was located at the Hungry Putter because of two things. We had a lot of complaints, and this is going back to previous council. It's long before your time. A lot of complaints about the activity that was taking place on the beach and the neighboring properties getting inundated with feces, etc. So a public washroom was suggested and was put into place there. The agreement to put it at the location it's at now is a lease agreement that we've signed free of charge with the Hungry Putter. And it was put there because as soon as the washroom disappeared from the Augustine Road area, the closest washroom was theirs. And they rent their own portable washrooms, and they were getting inundated from people from the beach using their washrooms rather than strictly from their patrons. So it was a twofold approach to try and help the Hungry Putter not getting overwhelmed by beachgoers, as well as trying to mitigate some of the measures or some of the inappropriate activity at the beach. We did change the washroom facilities last year to provide in the washrooms, actually provide hand sanitization in the washrooms now, where they never used to. We provide daily cleaning of those washrooms. But Councillor McClone is absolutely right. In construction sites, they are legislated of what's required. And similar to festivals, for instance, they're legislative of what's required. But I can't seem to find the actual legislation for just a beach or a public access point type of thing. But we will definitely review that legislation and be able to get back to council on that.
Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think just for time's sake, then, I think we just take that one out, and that's going to come back to us later. And perhaps maybe the owner of the business that's leased that will have a bit of input. I think, again, if this is something that's gone there and gone back and gone there, I'd like to get a little bit more history on that as well. So I would propose that we just amend the motion to take out the last that at this time.
Okay, so you're making a motion for an amendment to remove the last paragraph about the accessible public washroom at Long Beach to the Augustine Road Lake access, that it be moved. Your motion is to remove that. Okay, do we have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Van Vliet is seconding it. So we're only voting on the amendment now to remove the last paragraph. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Councillor Van Vliet.
I have a question here from a resident who lives at the beach. They're wondering about the property at the corner of Augustine Road and Lakeshore. It's a fenced in area. It's too small to build on. Wondering if we could approach whoever owns that to put the washroom there. That's all.
Okay, staff can make a note of that, and Will or Richard. Any other discussion on the amendment? Councillor Gilmore.
So just so we're clear, are we where's it going to go from here? Are we referring that back to staff to come back with the information? We take it out. I don't want it to just go into oblivion. So,
Yeah, my understanding here is that we'll amend that, take that out. And then I don't know whether you want to defer this back to staff for further, fine tuning, or do you want to pass the remainder of the motion, which does involve continuing to work with, Niagara, NPCA, Niagara Police, et cetera, to move forward. So, I mean, there's a number of options here that we can do. By removing this, of course, taking the bathroom out, there's nothing here to say that we're removing it from the Hungry Putter. So to me, maybe I'm wrong, but to me, it means that it's going to just stay where it is for now. And then obviously, like I said before, this needs more rework to try to come up with better solution to it. So that's what I'm seeing. Any other thoughts, Councillor Cridland?
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to count. Yes, it's not that it's gone away. It's just out of this basket tonight that we're ready to give direction on. And so maybe it needs to be amended, and more information comes back to us on the public washroom discussion. So that'll come back in the next, at its next report, further discussion on the washroom options. Maybe that's a better statement there.
Okay, so we can include that, Meredith, in that amendment, in which we're voting on, removing it, and then coming back with further options and information. Okay, any other discussion? It's on the floor for voting to have that amendment approved, just the amendment of removing that. Okay, seeing none, the vote in favor of removing that amendment. Councillor Cridland?
In favor?
Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore?
favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
Okay, so that amendment is approved. And so now we look at the rest of the motion as amended. Just removing that last paragraph and changing it to come back with more information from council. Is there any other discussion on the rest of the motion? It's on the floor. Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I guess we know that the other direction comments have been captured through this to the CAO around capacity. So that doesn't need to be added as, all right, thank you. That's fine.
Three, Mr. Mayor. So yes, capacity, number of available parking spaces in the area, basic research that will certainly be undertaken. The one issue that I think was discussed, but I don't know if it's been clarified yet, is sort of like the beach delineation. I know Councillor Gilmore was recommending delineating the westerly edge of the road allowance. Was that direction that you wanted to provide to council, or council provide to staff to investigate that and come up with options? Again, I think I heard not the easterly side, but the westerly side, just by virtue of the geography and the sort of alignment issues that we're facing.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing some heads nod. Do we want to make that as part of the amendment to the motion, that staff look into placing a barrier or fence on the west side of the road access down to the lake, up to the hill there? Yes? Councillor Gilmore?
You want a motion, or just take
Yeah,
it
let's-
under advisement and bring it back with the washroom situation?
Yeah, I think we just bring it back with the washroom, make it easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think too.
Okay, so we put that in as part of that amendment. Okay, so we voted on the amendment. Councillor McClellan.
Just, I know last year we put up a wood fence that disappeared. So if we're doing this, should we be looking at something a little more stable and maybe give us a cost of what it's going to be?
Yeah, that's direction to staff there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Councillor Cridland.
Clearly, we weren't done. It's just such a big topic. Did we discuss education? I mean, I know we are going to get to where we're, I think, bylawing the ticket person coming on board immediately. And again, last year, COVID was against us. This year, can we add whatever education pieces that you might suggest that we have at hand at the next meeting as well for that bylaw officer?
Okay, as just part of it, look to Will Spencer, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, that is one of the, I think, clear directions that we will always try to pursue. And yes, we will try to come back with some additional information. We'll likely begin educating as early as tomorrow, once we get some direction on where council is going. But by all means, we'll come back to you with a broader sort of plan, if you will, for moving forward.
Okay, and thank you. And one component of this, of course, is the parking aspect that I and many of the councillors have heard loud and clear, the lack of parking for Wainfleet residents to go down to the lake and be able to park after a day's work and go for a swim. It's a very old tradition here. And so this parking aspect is hopefully going to address that and bring that back for Wainfleet residents to be able to enjoy that. So. Okay, I believe we're at the point where we're going to vote on the entire motion as amended. I don't see any other hands going up. And so we're going to in favor or oppose the motion as amended. Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore. Oh, lost him.
Excellent.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore, are you there? I don't even see him on the...
I believe Councillor Gilmore might be experiencing some technical issues and will likely rejoin, but
that motion is carried anyways.
Yeah.
So we can carry on. So, okay, that motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, at this point, and again, with Councillor Gilmore just sort of in the midst of, I presume, trying to rejoin, I note that we're about an hour away from your curfew that you established at the start of the meeting. I'm going to suggest that perhaps we start picking and choosing agenda items moving forward, only because some of the reports that you have on the agenda are fairly time sensitive and would ideally be able to be put through this evening. And some of the other reports might warrant more fulsome discussion, which could extend beyond the curfew type hours. So if it's okay, as staff, perhaps we can sort of very quickly put our heads together and come up with sort of pick and choosing reports that require very quick approval. For example, a lot of the public works tendering reports, the drainage reports are fairly straightforward, routine matters, awarding bids to the lowest bidder sort of thing. And then perhaps some of the more fulsome discussion ones can be left to later in the meeting or to be continued at our next meeting.
Yeah, we have 1 hour, so many of the routine issues we can probably just put those through very quickly. And the main one I think that we need to really look at is the clean yards bylaw. That needs discussion this evening, I think, and perhaps the fill one. So Councillor Van Vliet, you had your hand up before Councillor McCollum. Go ahead.
I think because Councillor Gilmore said his screen has frozen, everybody but him. So he's having technical difficulty. Should I have him go out, come back in?
Yeah, sure. That would work, hopefully. And Councillor McCollum.
Yes, so the fill bylaw, I'd like to push that. It needs a lot more work from what I read of it. So maybe we can push that on to another night. And
okay,
that's
so
a big one.
You wish to defer that one?
Yeah, it definitely needs a lot of more work.
Okay, so we are officially, we'll defer that. We don't need to vote on that. Councillor Van Vliet.
Meredith, could you give Councillor Gilmore a call, please? Thank you.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, perhaps the parking bylaw one next, and then we'll do some of the more routine public works drainage and public work tender reports.
Okay, so bylaw
Councillor.
enforcement staff report, review of parking and traffic bylaw 10-2018. That's it. That's the one. Okay, Mr. Tardif, if you will give us a very brief overview of that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all council. The report and attached parking bylaw amendment addresses some of the issues that we encountered in the 2020 parking season. Some of the changes that are being proposed are the separations of stop, stand, and park. As you know, stopping and parking have different regulations for letting people off. And for parking, you can stop and let someone out, where stopping you can't. So we have designated a couple areas as no stopping, just to keep traffic flowing. We also have implemented last year. Council approved that all the side roads from Lakeshore Road to the beach as no parking areas. In talks with the fire chief and other staff members, I think it would be beneficial if we further that on and designate them all as emergency routes. Those are all municipally owned access points for our fire department to get to water access, emergency vehicles if someone's in need of emergency care on the beach. These areas need to be clear for that purpose. So we're recommending that all of those side roads be changed from no parking to emergency routes. As well as Tunnicliffe Road, as discussed at last council meeting, has been added to this bylaw, which was never there before. And then when this parking bylaw was drafted in 2018, there was a section put in for the implementation of residential parking permits, but was left blank at that time for future use. Well, that time has come. We have a little bit of a pilot project with 2 designated areas that were high traffic areas last year that we feel will help residents utilize the beach because there'll be dedicated parking spaces for them. And that's a brief overview, as well as if council does want to move forward with this, there's the corresponding AMPS bylaw for those changes for the fine system in place that would have to be addressed as well. But if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. So the proposed motion, bylaw enforcement staff report BESR 005-2021 respecting the review of parking and traffic bylaw number 10/2018 be received, and that council consider proposed amendments to parking and traffic bylaw attached to this report as Appendix A. Mover seconder to put that on the floor, Councillor McClellan and Councillor Cridland. And now any discussion? Okay. Oh, Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just want to address or talk to the resident permit parking section. I know it sounds like other sections are not really that new, like to go from stop to stand. So we're borrowing the infrastructure or the Ontario guidelines. But for permit parking, would there be any benefit to having it just generic? So permit parking as the group, and then a subgroup would be residential permit parking, other kind of permit parking. I don't know what the demand is for this, so I've just sort of got an operations hat on. What are we building? How big is it? Are we building something for 3 people or 40 or 60? In terms of implementing this, again, because we have it, we don't have to use it. So if we pass it tonight, we don't have to implement anything. It's just there. Is that a correct assumption?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cridland and all council. So as I stated, this is essentially just a pilot project. We're just trying this out. Okay. We're going to see what the appetite is. We have, like I said, we've picked the 2 highest traffic areas, and we've designated certain spaces just for the residential parking permits.
Thank you.
And again, it's just a pilot project to try it out. It's open for discussion at any point, I would say.
Yeah, and we may as this moves forward, again, we're just trying it this year because I've heard so much, and I know many of you have, about lacking of ability to get to the lake by residents. So if it works out, we may expand it and look at other areas. Councillor Cridland.
So I just wanted to follow up. So we'll get a report then, or some kind of summary after a, 6 or 8 week pilot, let's say. Again, if our intention is to provide this to residents, I also want to be sensitive that if the fee, this small administration fee, if that's a barrier, I'd like to capture that as well. So if there's, I want to be sensitive to those that have been going there at no fee, and what does this fee do to those people, so that it's inclusive. So anyway, it's exciting. I like that we're piloting it. That's a really brilliant approach.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, my only question is, do we really think you need 4 per household? In most cases it's 2, I would guess at the most. I'm afraid that you'll be giving them to your cousin and your friend in Port Colborne and anywhere else, and then we defeat our own purpose.
Yes, that was my question as well. So, Mark?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McCullen and all of council. Again, that's just what's proposed. If you want to lower that number, I'm perfectly fine with that. My assumption was with COVID times, if you have your mother and father vehicles and a lot of kids have returned back home, there's 2 more cars right there. That's 4 vehicles right off the top. We do know that there are going to be circumstances where there is only 2 or maybe 3, and they are going to get 4 to give to a friend or whatever. That's going to be really hard to find a balance to stop that, but also give enough to the residents that want them.
Okay. Follow up, Councillor McClellan, and then Councillor Van Vliet. Sorry.
So one quick thing. So maybe the first 2 you give away, or you have a very low fee. The next 2 you charge a decent amount of money for it. Just to stop it. Maybe, I don't know. I just don't want to see that there's four cars from every household that are trying to get in there. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just from experience of having kids at home when they were at home, all 4 of us could have had our vehicles there at one point, or my kids could have each been there at the same time in their vehicles and then leaving. I have friends who have more than 4 children who live in Wainfleet and they all drive. So I think we have to watch putting a cap on it for too many or not, or just 2 cars. 2 cars is not enough. I know there's a lot of families out there who have more than 4 children. So it's a slippery slope there. So I don't have a.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good point. That was my first question too. And then I sat with the CAO. We had a quick discussion on it and it made sense. So yeah. And again, everything can be altered and changed as we move forward. That's the thing about this. So
no. And I guess if you have 4 cars that are registered in Wainfleet, that's one thing, right? It's just, you don't want to be given 4 passes to every household. And I give one to my son from Niagara Falls and one to my daughter from Fauna Hill, and they're there, right? So I don't know, maybe registration that it's going on. It's
okay, in the interest of moving along, should we?
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, the motion has been read. I have a mover. It's moved already, so I look for a recorded vote. Opposed or in favor of these motions? Councillor Quinlan.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And I'm in favor, and that's majority. So that is.
No, I said in favor. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all in favor.
Oh, I thought you said I wasn't in favor. Sorry, my bad.
No, I said I'm in favor. Probably I mumbled or something. So more than likely. Okay. Will, what should we whip through next? The drainage staff report. We could. I don't know about the fire reports if we need to get into them too deep.
So the drainage.
We can't hear you. And Councillor Gilmore is back.
Wait,
Great.
Now he is.
Go ahead, Will.
I was suggesting if we just continue along the agenda at this stage with the drainage report, it's again a fairly routine one and should go through fairly very quickly. And I think Councillor McClellan indicated.
I have a conflict.
Okay, so if you'll shut down your camera and your audio, please. And we'll look to Mark Jemison, our drainage superintendent, to speak to this, please.
Great. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So this staff report is in response to some planning applications to sever and adjust the boundaries of property assessed to the Lambert Road municipal drain. Township typically completes several of these apportionments under Section 65 of the Drainage Act each year, like this one, to maintain up-to-date assessment schedules. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, a motion being the Drainage Staff Report DSR 008-2020 respecting apportionment agreement McClellan be received, and that the agreement on share of assessment attached hereto as Appendix A be approved. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Cridland and Councillor Van Gilmore. Any discussion? Fairly routine issue here. Okay, seeing none, I'll take the vote. Councillor Cridland?
Favor?
Councillor Gilmore?
Favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
And I'm in favor, and that is carried. Councillor McClellan, you can come back in.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to the Central Fire Station update. Chief Alcock, if you could do a brief update, please.
Actually, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before doing that, could I recommend maybe we jump to some of the Public Works tender award reports? They're fairly straightforward rubber stamp. I mean, they're not rubber stamps, but they're fairly straightforward and simple in nature. Then maybe we can loop back to the fire reports, and then we can proceed on to any other critical ones.
Okay, let's go to on my agenda. It's E, Public Works Staff Reports. The first one, PWSR 005.
I have a conflict with the first two items.
Okay, then same as before. Thank you, Councillor McClellan. It's the award for engineering services for Gents Road Bridge. And Mr. Nan, would you give us a brief update on that, please?
Yes, through your worship to members of council, as you know, we've approved the potential of reconstructing the 2. We should have the potential engineering done for that. And then we have to go through the approval process with the NPCA and DFO, which could take a little bit of time. But I'm hoping, because we've had some previous discussions with them in the time frame for being able to work in those areas, I'm hoping that we could still get that awarded this year and get the construction started on the Gents Road one.
I was just working around crop season. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind depending on when the approvals come in. If we have to, we'll delay it for crop season, but we'll definitely keep that in consideration because we still have to prepare the tender once the approval stages are going through anyways. So we'll definitely take that in consideration as we move forward.
Okay, Councillor Cridland.
Thank you again. So excited to see these reports, Mr. Nan. It's just wonderful. The second one about the 2 bridges, you said it's going to extend their life. Do you have just a sense, a guesstimate? Like, are we moving from urgent to 5 years, 10 years, or is that difficult to say with the investment we're making?
Through your worship to Councillor Cridland, the unfortunate part is, when you build a bridge, you try to build it for 75 years. The unfortunate part is these were built in 2008 and 9, and they're already starting to show wear because of infiltration of water through the deck. They're a fiberglass bridge deck that were put together in 2 pieces with a seam, and that seam is leaking, and it's actually starting to rust the girders underneath it. So once that starts, it just extensively gets worse and worse over time. So the plan is to stop the infiltration of water, having it shed away from the steel structure, and we're hoping to at least get them to last for 20 years. But the unfortunate part, it's a fiberglass bridge that doesn't necessarily meet the standards that should have been built on. That's the unfortunate part. In speaking with the engineering, there's 2 options. We try to save it and prolong the life of this bridge, or we let it rot and just replace the whole thing when it's time. That's the only 2 options they gave me.
Okay.
So thank you. At least we're making a plan, so that gets us far into the future. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, then the motion is on the floor for voting. Opposed or in favor of accepting? Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And I am in favor, and that is carried. Do we want Councillor McClellan back in for the calcium? I don't. Okay, Councillor McClellan, if you can come back in, please. I don't think we need too much. We don't need too much report on the calcium, do we? It's all in the report. Does anybody need Richard to speak to it?
I had a question.
Okay, then.
Gravel road lady.
Oh, you hush.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I'm just, okay, Richard, my question is, with the weather changing that we've had, and because I do live on a gravel road, we need more calcium than we did in previous years because the summers are a lot hotter and a lot longer now with less rain. So is there, like in here, is there any way we would get 2 applications per year, or are we just going to go with 1?
Through your worship to Councillor Van Vliet, this contract was prepared earlier, and it was actually, we were starting to prepare this contract because it's a joint contract that we're in with West Lincoln. So we've been preparing this for several months, and we were only counting on a single application, but we'll see where we end up. We may be able to slow the application in certain areas to try and save some, but the unfortunate part is when we were estimating budget for this year, we did have an increase, but the increase in the calcium chloride is actually a lot more than what we anticipated. So we're going to have to be very strategic in using it this year to begin with. And if it seems that we're going to be getting a lot of complaints, the only thing I could suggest is we revisit the issue at a future date for additional resources.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Just one quick question, and Richard, I don't expect you to give me this over the air or anything, but could you let me know what the price per square meter is? I guess that's how they do it, or is it by the ton or the square meter?
Sorry, it's by the flake ton.
Okay, so do they give you a coverage?
Yeah, I do have that back at my office in the actual tender document.
I didn't expect, out of curiosity, right? I'd like to.
Yeah, you could
know what
do that offline as a general discussion.
Yeah, that's what I said. I didn't expect it online tonight, so.
Okay, so the motion, folks, is that Public Works staff report respecting award for tender for calcium for 2021 to 2023 be received, and that council authorize the manager of operations to award the tender to Dali Dust Control for the supply and application of calcium chloride for 2021 to 2023. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Van Vliet. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Opposed or in favor? Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
And that is carried.
Mr. Mayor, through you, perhaps this might be an opportunity to loop back to fire reports.
Okay, let me find it.
And then after the fire reports, council will have its opportunity to spend the rest of the meeting before curfew to review whatever outstanding items are on the agenda, and then wrap up at 9:30 by introducing the bylaws that we need to get through this evening. And then we'll try to reschedule per council's direction.
Okay, fire staff report. We look for the Central Fire Station project update, please. I'll look to the chief for that. Briefly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. There was a request at the last meeting regarding the status of the project. So this was just a memo to provide council an updated information as to the steps that have been taken in working with the architect and kind of a quick tentative schedule of next steps.
Okay, thank you. So the motion being that the memorandum from Fire Chief respecting the Central Fire Station project update be received for information, and move for seconder to put it on the floor, please. Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor Cridland. and discussion, please. Okay, I see none. Oh, Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, so on page 101 under recommendations, we are recommendation number 3. I don't agree with that. You know, we don't know what the price is yet. So I don't want to give that to anybody. COVID's getting worse than it was, or at least we're getting inundated with more rules and regulations. I definitely don't know if the chief will have, I don't want to go with that till we see what the numbers are. And I asked last council meeting or the previous council meeting that maybe we could hold off on this pumper till we did see what those prices are, because the price of building is going through the roof. And this is going to be a problem. I can tell you that right now. So I still stand that we should hold off on ordering that pumper. And I know the other one blew up in the last 30 days and I could have bet money that was going to happen. But anyway, I don't want to give permission to go ahead with that capital project on the fire hall.
Okay, look.
Fire apparatus report. I think we were still dealing with page 100, which is just the update about the fire station, and just advising that there will be documentation regarding the fire station returning to the next available meeting for information. So I think they're 2 separate reports. One's a memo. And
Okay,
one's
so they're both on the same. It comes up as 101 on mine, but we'll yeah, okay.
I can't see it, so I don't know where it is on here. I'm a bit blind right now, so.
Yeah, I'll wait till it comes to the next report then.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this motion for the receiving the fire station update? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to the chief. So this is still, I guess, respecting that meeting that there was a motion on for council to look at whatever documents, right? Nothing's changed with this memo. All right.
No, that's correct. This is just letting council know that we are working towards what council directed staff to do.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's on the floor. So I have the vote opposed or in favor. Councillor Cridland of receiving this. Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And that is carried. So did we want to do the apparatus update now, Will? Okay, look to the chief to speak to that one, please.
Yeah, so this is just an update to council regarding the status of our apparatus. As it says, you know, we did have a failure that is right now we're investigating repair, and that I want to let council know that we do currently have a station that doesn't have a quote unquote fire truck that's in service in it, and that once I have more information, that there will be a more wholesome report coming back regarding an asset plan for our apparatus.
Okay, thank you. So the motion simply being to receive this memorandum from the fire chief respecting the apparatus update. The mover seconder for that, please. Mover seconder, Councillor McClellan and Councillor Van Vliet. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, opposed or in favor. Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And that is carried. We've received that. The pumper tender, want to go that, Will? We should do that one too. Okay, Chief, speak to that one, please. 005/2021.
Yeah, so this report, Mr. Mayor and members of council, outlines the process for the RFP for the replacement of a rescue pumper. I mean, all of the details are out there. I've attached the RFP that was submitted and the results of that. So certainly, the capital budget that was approved at the time was 600. The recommendation for the vehicle to be purchased come in under that budget. And so the request is that we proceed with that purchase and that the remaining budget be used for any upfitting of equipment, tools, any auxiliary pieces that needed to be added to the truck once it's delivered.
Okay, thank you. Motion being that the fire staff report 005-2021 respecting the award of tender for one rescue pumper fire apparatus be received for information, and that council approve the purchase for the supply and delivery of a rescue pumper fire apparatus from Dependable Emergency Vehicles at a cost of $584,000, not including HST, and that the fire chief be delegated the authority to proceed with completion of the capital project, provided it falls within the remaining approved capital budget amount. A mover and a seconder to put this on the floor, please. Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor Cridlin. And discussion. Councillor McClellan.
So I made my 2 points earlier. I'd like to hold it, and I don't want to give permission to go ahead with the fire hall till we see what we get.
Okay, are you, do you want to make a motion on that, or how you make a
Yeah,
motion?
I'll make a motion that we hold on the ordering of the fire. I guess they should go as two. One, will hold on the ordering of the fire truck, and two, that we do not give permission to go ahead with the capital project being the fire hall until we see what we get for prices.
Okay, Will, would that not be covered off just simply by voting yes or no on the existing motion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. I think that, and let me just call up the motion contained in the fire tender. So the award of tender report, that last paragraph contained in there refers to, has nothing to do with the fire hall itself. That last element refers to proceeding with the acquisition of the vehicle and all the auxiliary sort of equipment and materials that need to be added to the base truck. There's nothing in that recommendation dealing with the fire hall at all.
No, so, but what I'm saying is we can just go ahead and vote on this, and then that will also address Councilor McClellan's concern that it not be approved.
Correct.
We don't need to amend anything here, so.
That's right. If you're going to defer the award of the tender, nothing that simply defers the award of the tender, and nothing will proceed either with the fire hall project or with the vehicle tender until council provides that direction.
I don't understand the fire hall because that's separate from the award of the truck. It's two different things.
Can I just make a point of order?
Councilor Gilmore.
Yeah, I think the problem is the verbiage that's used in the third bullet, because you need the context of what capital project. I mean, it's sort of inferred that the capital project refers to the capital purchase of the pumper, but it is a bit ambiguous, and I think that's Councilor McClellan can certainly speak for himself, but I think that's what maybe the confusion lies, and it would be just better just to say proceed with the purchase of the pumper instead of leaving it ambiguous. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I didn't even see that, read it like that, because I mean, it's all under the award of tender for rescue pumper. It has nothing to do with the fire.
Yeah, but buying a pumper is a capital purchase, not a capital project.
Yeah,
and
that's what I mean. I didn't.
Okay, that's my point. It's just it's
like
verbiage.
Yes.
But my apologies.
It's important verbiage.
Yeah, that certainly wasn't my intent when the report was written. Every line in the budget say capital project, and that was the verbiage I used. My apologies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard used this capital purchases, so that's
This is voting in favor of this. Gives the chief the authority to go ahead with the purchase and supply that rescue pumper. Voting opposed to it does not give the chief the authority, in which case then we would have to defer it. Councillor Gilmore.
I'm just curious what the impacts like of waiting would be versus. I mean, we're going to get, I assume, according to the previous memo, we're going to get some harder numbers on May 11. Whether we can just sit till the next meeting and then decide what to do with this, but I'm not signing up to leave the public at any great risk either. So.
Thank you. What kind of inflationary rates are we looking for here, Chief? And how long will it take for that to be delivered?
So the truck that has been provided through the RFP is a stock truck that is currently available coming out of Michigan. But that said, that means that truck could be picked up by another fire department across North America. So I don't want to put the pressure, but just understand that waiting, that truck may be sold, at which point we either go back to tender for another apparatus or we are stuck with the next bidder, which was over budget and had a delivery time of 420 days.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Councillor Craig?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well,
Councillor
Councillor
Craig?
Gilmore maybe
No,
wasn't
go ahead.
finished.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I might just be rephrasing what Councillor Gilmore had already said. So and I don't obviously purchase trucks every day, but how good is this price for this truck then? So how long do we have before this transaction would be void?
So there is no, like, that the price is good for 60 days, but if council decides not to proceed, the vendor can go and sell it to the next purchaser.
And we are down a truck in one of our stations, correct?
That's right. That's correct. So the benefit to this is it was a truck that was readily accessible. It gets a truck in the hall. We can move a truck from the station to one, move it to station one, remove the squad from service, and then we have our stations operational again.
Okay, Councillor Cridland.
Thank you. If I could continue. So is this the same truck that we had that was going to be then custom made? This is originally going to be a smaller truck that was in the Burnaby fire hall.
Correct.
And so
Yes.
have we pivoted off that style of truck with this purchase?
No. So what we did is, knowing that Burnaby was going to be in existence for some time, and knowing that the new station is tentatively set to open not until 2022, we couldn't wait any longer to replace one of the trucks. It didn't make sense to purchase a truck to fit in Winger or the Village, knowing that it was going to move anyways. So the idea was put the truck at Station 3, make sure that we spec a truck that fits in Station 3, that can operate at that hall for the foreseeable.
Definitely.
And then we can move that truck that's there into one of the existing halls.
So if I could continue, sorry. This truck in front of us now, this 584, is still that truck. It's just not, it didn't have to be customed. It's available immediately. So then if I could perhaps then go to the finance person, because I don't think we were thinking we were going to be financing something this quickly. So could I please ask the treasurer then for her advice on this, the timing of this transaction now? Please.
Okay, we look to Ms. Louie, please.
Thank you. So through the mayor to Councillor Cridland and all of council. So when it was approved in the budget, we do have enough cash to cash flow this purchase. So we could still debenture it later in the year, as we would have if it was to be custom and to be built. So I didn't actually know the time frame of when it was going to be. I knew we might have held off on it in terms of waiting for some numbers from the fire hall. But it's no issue for us being able to pay for this upfront, and then we can debenture it later in the year.
And the main thing is it will fit in our Burnaby Hall. It will be a new truck to replace the one that is broken, and we're not leaving residents without a fire coverage in a certain area. So, and we did budget for it. Any other discussion? Okay, I don't see any other hands. So voting in favor of this means we go ahead, give the chief authority to go ahead. Opposed means that we don't, and we'll have to bring it back at another meeting. So, Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor McClellan.
Opposed.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And I am in favor. And so that is carried.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, through you to council, for the record, we will reword that part 3 of the motion in the council minutes so it accurately reflects that the capital project is actually the acquisition of the vehicle only and nothing else.
Okay, so as I look
Can I make one more point? Sorry,
go ahead, Councillor Gilmore.
Just briefly, one more point. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but I find the additional 100 pages following the report seriously clogs up my ability to scroll through the agenda back and forth in a timely manner. Like, I appreciate the appendix. If it could just be totally separate and come rather than be linked, it would certainly be helpful for me anyway. But
actually, that's interesting because the CAO and I spoke about that, and I said we don't need to see that in this forum. It can be something separate. So yeah, it was a huge report to start to go through, and shouldn't really be attached to the agenda. So, and the chiefs we've had that conversation, so that's already. Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Okay, site alteration bylaw. Now that was deferred. Councillor McClellan, I believe.
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, through you, perhaps we could do the item of correspondence from Avondale. And then at that stage, we will have completed all the sort of critical business, and then members will have the opportunity to sort of pick and choose which items they want to deal with in the last 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So that is C-123-2021. Avondale Stores Limited requesting a letter of approval for the sale of alcohol on Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Family Day. Is there any discussion on that? Do we need discussion? Would somebody like to make a motion in favor or opposed? And we can just move through this fairly quickly. Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve it and sign the letter and get it to them.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Van Vliet. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Councillor Cridland, opposed or in favor?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And I am in favor. That is carried.
So, Mr. Mayor, through you to council, at this stage, I believe the remaining reports are the contracting out of services, the site alteration, which I think has indicated deferral, and then the clean yards bylaw / noise bylaw discussion. Again, we have about 20 minutes before curfew. If you wish to pick and choose from amongst those, once we hit the curfew, the recommendation would be adopting the final bylaws, and then we will look to rescheduling another meeting if required to deal with what's left.
Okay, let me find all this here now. The information on the clean yards bylaw, that one will, I'm going to guess, take some discussion.
Not much.
Not much?
No, I could do that quick.
You think? Okay.
Yep, I know.
All right, let's do that quick, and we'll squeeze in anything else that we can. So, clean yards bylaw and noise bylaw. And I'll look to our clerk to speak to those, please. of your memo?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So at the last meeting of council, Mr. Gilmore brought forward a motion to have these two bylaws, being clean yards bylaw and noise bylaw, placed on this agenda for review and discussion.
Okay, thank you. So, Will, you're going to speak?
Perhaps Councilor Gilmore can sort of introduce his thoughts regarding his notice of motion.
Okay, excellent. Councilor Gilmore?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll start with the noise bylaw first because it's fairly straightforward. The reason I wanted to bring that back was I've over the past year or so, I've been getting the odd comment about trucks using Jake brakes, mainly in Chambers Corners, but certainly in the village boundary as well. So I spoke to Richard already and just wondered about requesting the MTO, maybe the region, because Chambers Corners is a conjunction of several roads, just to inquire whether we could put avoid engine brake signs up on each end of several many miles of very flat road, which makes Jake brakes totally redundant. So that's that. So I've already spoken to Richard. I think we can just give him direction to inquire whether these other levels of bureaucracy would see the merit in that, and he can get back to us. So I don't know, do you want to let anybody else comment, and then I'll go on to my clean yards issue.
Okay, so the noise bylaw, is there anyone else wish to have comment on that? Will?
Just 30 seconds, not even that. Fully support the idea of installing signage as recommended by the councillor, and we will follow up on that. I would strongly recommend against suggesting any changes to the bylaw to prohibit them, because they are still a safety feature on vehicles. And if they need to be used in an emergency or other situation, we shouldn't be doing anything to prohibit that, but certainly signs make a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that? Okay, so I think we can just give that as direction. Councilor Gilmore, you've already spoke to Richard, so we give that direction to Richard if everybody's in favor. I don't see anybody concerned about that. Okay, so that is done, and then we'll move on to the clean yards. Councilor Gilmore?
Yeah, that was surrounding mainly the inoperative vehicle portion, but when I was reviewing the bylaw to get ready for this meeting, I noted that in 5.4 bullet 4, it says there that no inoperative vehicles will be permitted within 500 feet of any property boundary, municipal boundary, and one other thing, which then made my thought about tightening that up in the hamlet completely redundant, because hamlet lots are 1 acre, 200 by 200. It's impossible to be 500 feet away from anything in a hamlet in the first place. So when I spoke to Mr. Gudgeon after finishing talking about my new job, he agreed that that's the way it's written, although here again there's ambiguity and the lack of the two conjunctions that should be in there, those being and or. And he's agreed that the bylaw needs to be revisited and rewritten to insert those conjunctions to make it actually say what it's supposed to say. So nothing really needs to happen. I think he's going to also take that under advisement and then get back to us.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, I know I read that too, and it's extremely vague, and a vehicle missing a component, well, that could be anything. So it does need a little bit of work, so we refer that back to staff for a rework. Is everybody in agreement there? Okay, so that is done. Thank you very much. Thought we were going to be a while on that one. That's done. What's left here now? Stuff's all over the place. Meredith or Will, do you know what we're missing here now?
Mr. Mayor, the last two reports, I believe, are the site alteration, which I think council has agreed to defer,
Yeah.
and the contracting out of services, which is a report that was prepared in response to a notice of motion from some time ago. That's taken a while to get before you, but it's before you this evening.
And
Okay.
if I could,
I just want to know what page it's on so I can scroll through.
I know I've lost it too because I'm all over the place here.
so if I could, seeing as it was my notice asking for it,
Yes, go ahead, Councilor McCollum.
let's push that back. I have some comments I want to talk to Richard about before I bring them up in public. So if we can push that one as well.
Okay.
Councilor Gilmore.
You wish to?
Oh, no, I'm just, sorry.
Scrolling.
I'm just scrolling through 150 pages of tender trying to find out which page to put you on. I still haven't got there.
That's why I asked.
Page
Okay,
27.
so Councilor McClellan, you're deferring that one as well.
Yeah, I'm going to ask that we defer that as well. I have a few questions for Richard that I should probably ask in private rather than.
Okay. So that means that we have everything done except our final little bylaws and that?
Yep.
Okay, and it's 9:19. Okay, moving on then. Bylaws. Following bylaws to be read and passed this 20th day of April 2021. Bylaw number 12, 2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 10, 2018, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and parking in the township. And bylaw number 13, 2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 20, 2014, being a bylaw to establish a system for administrative penalties respecting the stopping, standing, and parking of vehicles. Okay, those the two bylaws. Mover and a seconder for those. And I look to the deputy clerk who's waving at me.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, there was actually one more bylaw that was added to the agenda. So bylaw 14 being a bylaw to appoint a municipal bylaw enforcement officer for the township. That will be included within that motion there too.
Okay, thank you.
And again, Mr. Mayor, through you to council, that added bylaw regarding the appointment of an officer is the sort of summer bylaw enforcement officer that we use to assist with parking and Lakeshore, and particularly Lakeshore area patrols, in conjunction with the parking bylaw changes and the other activities that we're dealing with.
And is that the same person as last year, Will?
Through you, we were able to, after going through our recruitment effort, able to have the officer return from the prior year. So the officer has plenty of experience, is a good understanding of the area, and is able to start on fairly short notice. So provided that we probably won't need her during the snow period that we have coming, but we will be able to get her prior to the long weekend beginning.
And I got some good feedback from the public about her last year. So I'm really happy we have her back. Huge step forward. Okay, mover seconder for the bylaws, please. The three bylaws, Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor McClellan. Any other discussion? Okay, those in favor or opposed, Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And I am in favor. Are there any notices of motion? Okay, seeing none. We don't have a closed meeting, no rise and report. So bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. That bylaw 14, 2021 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of the council at its meeting held on the 20th day of April, 2021, be read and passed this 20th day of April, 2021. Mover seconder for that, please. Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor McClellan. Any discussion? I don't see any. In favor or opposed, Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. And that is carried. Oh, if there's no reason that we should carry on, this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Will, go ahead.
Will.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to bother. One last thing. Again, when we set the curfew for 9:30, I think council had established that perhaps we try to schedule another meeting between this meeting and our next regular meeting 3 weeks from today. My records indicate that there are two reports, the site alteration and the contracting out, that are the two main reports that were deferred. We can certainly reach out to members of council to check their availability on rescheduling. We understand. I understand from discussion that there are some questions that Councillor McClellan has regarding those two matters. So we will try to reschedule. If we find that we're unable to, the question I wanted to put to council: would it be okay if we can't reschedule that these matters be brought back at the next regular meeting?
What's our next agenda look like? I mean, shaping up wise, does it look like it's going to get heavy, or are we anticipating not too bad?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this stage, it does not look to be overly bad. We are certainly working on our routine stuff, and we do have some reports that will be coming back just regarding other matters. And certainly if we can pull together some of the additional information that you were discussing this evening for the next meeting, those will come back. But I won't say it's extraordinarily heavy, as heavy as the one that you had this evening.
Okay, input, please, Councillor Cridland.
Through you, Mayor, in terms of the site alteration, again, it's now in the public, so I don't personally see needing that to have a special meeting. I just assume that stay in a regular cycle. If it happens to slip a cycle, I don't even think that's really of a concern, because I know staff is working on a plan to now start that work. So I'm not sure if that helps, but I'm not feeling like it needs a special meeting. But again, if council wants a special meeting, I'm okay with that too.
Well, I guess I'll ask the question, does anybody think that we need a special meeting?
No.
No? Okay, so I think we're going to try to, from that, Will, looks like we'll try to squeeze it in on the next one then, and maybe it's not too heavy the next one, so. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. We really cranked through that this evening. Our meeting is adjourned.